I know we're still waiting for a couple of people, but we'll start right on time just because we've got so much good information I know our speakers have and want to share with us. And we have just 1 hour for our little coffee break session. So I'll get things going this morning. Welcome. I am Amy Lindenberger. I'm the chair of the CAGP Greater Vancouver chapter this year, and also Chief Executive Officer at Refocus Communications and Fundraising in my day job. I want to welcome you to our very first session of this program year. We're pleased that Rory and Fraser are here to help kick us off. This is new coffee break timing, so be sure to let us know what you think of it. We'll have a survey for you at the end. And I just want to thank our program committee for going above and beyond this year, changing all our norms to totally, we'll hear this word more, I'm sure, but I'll have to say it again, is the pivot from what we usually do and how we usually do our sessions in person to this new online reality we find ourselves in. I want to quickly acknowledge the land I am coming to you from is the unceded ancestral territories of Stolo, Katzie, and Kwantlen nations. But I want to say, if you don't know where you are located, which nations are the land you're on, Raman just posted there for you the native-land.ca website. It's really neat. You can put in your postal code and see exactly what territorial land you're on. I know we all had probably the ones we knew where our workplace was, and we had that prattle, but now it's really neat. Now that we're all coming from home, we can look into that. I also want to say, regarding the word ancestral, I want to acknowledge that reconciliation is not righting wrongs of the past, because these things are happening even today. If we look at the Micmac lobster fisheries in Nova Scotia, or my home nation, the Mohawk in Ontario, defending land from developers that is theoretically, in many ways, it is their land. And the Unistoten blockades here to prevent pipelines running through their unceded territories here in BC. So I want us to think about reconciliation not as something that happened in the past, it's happening now. More things are happening now that we can, instead of righting wrongs from the past, let's stop having more wrong things. That's my heavy piece for the day. Some lighter notes for our today's session. Please use the chat box for comments and questions. We'll try to have time at the end to answer those. Feel free to turn off your video if desired, if you're feeling that Zoom fatigue, or if you need to eat and drink. Just take care of yourself during this session. It's meant to be free and easy, but certainly we love to see your smiling face too. And now I'm pleased to turn things over to the planned giving dynasty of Fraser Green and Rory Green.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying hello to everyone. I see some familiar faces. I see Tim and Sophia and Chris and Sarah and Beth Ann, and I'm just so grateful for all of you for being here. I know there's been an overwhelming amount of webinars and online professional development, so it does mean a lot to Dad and I that you chose to be here with us today. To kick it off, I'm going to introduce Fraser Green. And I think we all know Fraser. He's the chief smarty pants at GoodWorks. He's written 3 books. He speaks constantly. He's one of the most sought out speakers. I still to this day get, "You're Fraser Green's daughter." Some things you might not know about him are Fraser is someone, Dad's been someone who's been committed to social justice and making the world a more fair and equitable place since a very young age. He grew up with kind of heroes of social justice like Martin Luther King Jr. And it's something that his whole life he's been working to. He had a long career in politics, working with the NDP. He's had a long career in fundraising with causes close to his heart. When I was diagnosed with a learning disability as a kid, he got involved in the Learning Disability Board of Canada. He's got 2 very cute dogs, a very cute cat, just moved to Quebec. So feel free to talk to him in French because he needs to brush up. And I'm very grateful he let me twist his arm into presenting with me today.
Thanks, Rory. Hi, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Fraser Green. And I often run into people at conferences who say, "You're Rory Green's father?" In fact, I think I get that more than she gets the recognition of that being my daughter. I want to start introducing Rory by saying that the night she was born was the most important and meaningful night of my life. Being her dad has been the best experience of my life, and I think she's an amazing human being. Those of you who know her probably won't be surprised to learn that as a young child, she was always really perceptive and really wise, very adult, and she always struck me as being such an old soul. I remember when she was 3, she was in the car seat and we're driving somewhere and she just pipes up and says, "Dad, I know that difference between happiness and joy." And I said, "You do?" Because I didn't. And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "Well, Dad, happiness comes from the outside, but joy comes from the inside." And I remember saying to myself, "Fraser, you really got something here." She was always a crusader for whatever she thought was right. She was never one to go along with the crowd. If she really had the courage of her convictions, and if she really felt something strongly, she acted on it. At 10, she was at a school where she got involved in the spring charity event, which was a bike-a-thon to raise money for juvenile cancer research. And almost all the kids on the organizing committee were in grade 10, which was a senior grade in that school. There were 15-year-olds, and Rory wanted to be a part of it. And at 10, she joined with all these teenagers. And by 12, she was the chair of the committee. And under her leadership, this event went from raising like $15,000 a year to raising like $80,000 and $90,000 a year. She just blew the doors off it. So the fundraising came early, and it came hard. When she was 11, we put her on a plane for BC on her own. She flew out to BC to visit with some relatives, and she came back 2 weeks later and told her mother and I that she had decided that BC was where she was going to live. She was just decided. And we thought, "Oh, that's cute. She's 10. What does she know?" Or she's 11. But then at 17, she applied to one university that was really hard to get into, the Global Studies program at UBC, and she got in. And at 17, I put her on a plane for Vancouver, and she was gone forever. And her mom's loss and my loss is all of your gain. Rory's had fundraising stints at the Canadian Cancer Society, at BCIT, and of course now at Simon Fraser. Rory is also a sought-after speaker. She's spoken in England, Ireland, Holland, all over the US and across Canada. I'm following her to the Halifax Maritime AFP conference next spring, which is going to be a real challenge because she just blew them away last time that she spoke. I'll conclude by saying that Rory Green is without question my life's masterpiece, and I expect to get thoroughly defeated in the next hour.
Well, so there's a lot of love, which is good, because now we're going to get into the fighting. So we had to say nice things about each other, because now we're going to fundamentally disagree. So welcome to the Plan Giving debate. Plan Giving to donors in their 30s and 40s, untapped gold mine or complete waste of time. This is a new format for CAGP Vancouver. Normally, you're probably used to seeing someone presenting on an idea and telling you what a great idea it is. And today you're going to have 2 speakers with different points of view. I am a millennial. I'm working in the trenches at SFU as a frontline fundraiser. Fraser's a consultant. He's a baby boomer, and he's working with charities across Canada and the US, advising, writing copy, designing strategy. So we have very different perspectives on this issue. And we really wanted to take this opportunity to kind of red team an idea and not necessarily tell you what's right or what's wrong, but give you 2 different perspectives on an idea to help you think about your own program and how you're developing your program. So you're going to see Fraser make some points. You're going to see me make some counterpoints. You're going to see us asking you a lot of questions. Please participate. Please comment in the chat box. Please participate in the polls. We want to hear from you. So getting into it, we're going to start off with the first poll question. We want to know, coming in, having not heard from us yet, do you think planned giving from donors under 50 is a good use of your time and resources? So please vote now. And if you want to expand on your answer, feel free to jump in that comment box and share with us why you answered what you did. We want to hear from you. Get your answers in, and I think Ramon is going to be popping up our results so we can see how we're all thinking and feeling. Okay, we're a little evenly split. We've got 60% saying yes, good answer, and 40% saying no. So Fraser, you've got some minds to change, and I've got some minds to change too. So Fraser, over to you. Let's get started.
Thank you. I want the first, so Rory and I are each going to have three little pieces of talking. And the first piece I want to talk about is sort of the psychology of living, the stages we go through in our lives, the stages your donors go through in their lives, and when we're really at a place where we're ready to think about our own mortality and making legacy gifts. If any of you have studied psychology, you're probably familiar with a psychologist named Erik Erikson, who laid out 7 sort of steps that we take if we live a happy and fulfilling and successful life. And he became the father of what's known as developmental psychology. And another philosopher who started out as a movie star sex kitten named Jane Fonda is today one of my favorite philosophers. I have tremendous admiration for her. And she talks about life in 3 acts. And the first time I heard her do this TED Talk, I just thought, my God, that's it. She's nailed it. She basically says that if you live to 90, you go through 3 acts, like you go through acts in a play or acts in a movie or even in a novel. Most literature, most creative writing is done in a 3-act format. And Jane Fonda's interpretation goes something like this. In the first 30 years of our life, we are developing, we are learning, we're growing, we're trying things on, we're experimenting, and we're becoming the person that we're ultimately going to be. I believe that most of us today reach maturity at about age 30. My esteemed opponent reached her maturity much younger, I must admit, but a lot of people I know in their 20s and 30s, they seem to kind of find themselves somewhere around 30. It's when the tree has stopped growing and the tree has become the tree, if you like. So that first act is all about growing and learning and becoming who you're going to be. The second act, which happens from about your 30th birthday to about your 60th birthday, is when you prove yourself. It's when you do your work. It's when you accumulate your possessions. It might be when you raise your children. It doesn't mean that for everybody. And it's when you're a provider. It might be for older parents. It might be for younger children. But it's a time of advancing, of proving yourself, of establishing yourself, and of earning and being productive. Then at around age 60, we reach a point where suddenly we don't need to prove so much anymore. The urgency isn't there to get another this, like have a 3rd car instead of just 2, or to make more money. In fact, I'm at a stage in my career right now where I'm trading back some days of the year and taking less income because I value time more than I value money right now. I mean, I need money, but I don't place the ultimate value on having more money. And in our 3rd act, we start to become more introspective. We start to look inward, and we start to ask questions about ourselves, the existential questions. Am I happy with the person I've become? Am I living the life I always wanted to live? What can I change to make sure that I finish strong? And that's an expression I heard at a webinar not long ago that I just love, finishing strong. And that's my attention. A lot of us want to simplify as we pass 30. We want to make sure that we're loving ourselves, that we're accepting the world around us, we're accepting the hand that life has dealt us, and at around 60, we accept our own mortality. It's only at around 60 that people really, truly, fully accept the fact that they're going to die. Rory is in the at start of her 2nd act. I'm in the start of my 3rd act. Most societies throughout history have worshipped ancestors, and we have always, and worshiping ancestors is one way that humans try to contrive or create the idea that their ancestors are immortal, that they're still with them. Human history, human literature, human folklore, human mythology has always been full of this search for immortality. There's something in the human spirit that makes us not want to accept the fact that poof, there comes a moment in time when we just disappear and none of us is there anymore. We all want to find some way of carrying on even though we're no longer drawing breath. People in the science and psychology world have created sort of 4 classifications of immortality, the smallest of which is physical. I mean, if you take my body and plant it under a tree, the tree will nourish itself from, you know, my minerals and whatever nutrients I have in my body, and I will physically live on through that tree. There's biological immortality, which is something I am acutely aware of, having lost my mother, but having a daughter who we're sharing this hour with now, and a granddaughter who's 3 years old and who is absolutely the apple of my eye. I see so much of myself in my daughter and now my granddaughter, and I now have this knowing that even when I am gone, a piece of me is going to live on in each of them, as well as their memories of me. Third type of immortality is spiritual immortality. In most religious traditions, there is some idea of either reincarnation or an afterlife. In the Christian tradition, it's heaven. But most of us in the world cling to the idea that after I die, I will somehow be transformed or will kind of morph into another form, but I will keep on going. And finally, and this is the one that's germane to this conversation, there is the idea of symbolic immortality, that I can somehow, through my gestures, through my legacy, leave a good footprint on the earth that will remain after I'm gone. And that's where legacy gifts fit. And I believe strongly that legacy gifts go hand in hand with A, that true acceptance of my own mortality, and B, my desire to be symbolically immortal, that by leaving a legacy gift, I will be remembered and my values and so on will go on. The final thing I want to say is Eric Erickson, who I opened by talking about, he had the idea that in the 7th and final stage of life, if you are mentally healthy, you develop the ability to create and exercise something called generativity. And generativity is the ability to love a future of which you will not be a part. It's the idea of planting a tree under whose shade you will not sit. That is very relevant to me. Next slide, sweetie. And I guess to just bring the mortality idea home, I want to refer back to something I came across when I was writing Iceberg Philanthropy back in 2006, 2007. And I came across an article that my sister found for me, actually. She's a psychologist who works with people with dementia. She tends to work with older patients. And she gave me an article that talked about how people accept their own mortality. And this article basically the study found that people who had truly accepted their own limited time on this earth had done so after they had experienced the death of others of their peer group, of their same age group. So when you lose a sibling, when you lose a friend from high school, when you lose another parent from daycare when your kids were the same age, when you've experienced those losses, death becomes very real to you. And last week, I was on Facebook in the evening, and I saw a post from Una O'Reilly lamenting the loss to cancer of her husband, Bruce Cox, who you see pictured here. When I was a new director of organization in the Ontario NDP, when I was around 28 or 29 years old, Bruce was a municipal activist. He was working with a Toronto alderman at the time named Jack Layton, who some of you have heard of. And Bruce came on staff with the provincial party and started working for me and became one of my proteges. Like me, he was a very upbeat, enthusiastic, high energy, funny kind of guy. And Bruce and I just hit it off right away. And Bruce was 3 years younger than me. And when I looked at his obituary in the Toronto Star the next day and realized that this was someone who looked up to me, that this was like a younger brother, that hit me pretty profoundly. My argument is that as we turn 60, as we have these experiences, we're in a position to really think about our legacy. We're in a position to really contemplate our own end. And we're in a position to really make legacy gifts. And in the next section, I'm going to talk about how that's when actually legacy gifts do come.
So now we have another little poll question. We want to hear from you again. We want to know what percentage of the donors or clients that you're working with who are leaving a charitable bequest are over 50. So think about, anecdotally, we don't expect you to have the exact perfect number, but roughly how many of them that you're working with are over 50. So feel free to submit your poll question now. And if you have a comment, you want to add something to the conversation, feel free to throw it in the chat box. I've seen a few people talking about, I think, Celia, and I saw Courtney saying they've got very limited resources, a very small plan giving team. Their board is very concerned with kind of revenue now. And so the focus for them needs to be on older donors because they need that revenue realized sooner. So please answer our poll question now. Jump in on the chat box if you have anything to say, and let's see what everyone's saying. So most people, 76%, are saying that most of your donors are over 50. So a lot of us are working with people over 50. And it's interesting because I would actually say that at Simon Fraser University, we have a good amount of donors that are under 50. It's not every donor, and it's kind of specific groups of donors that I notice that I'm working with. And Dad and I were talking about this the other day, and I was saying there's sort of stages where you'd expect people to write a will. Their children are born is often when a lot of people are writing their first will. Chris in the comments was just commenting that that was really important to him. And of course, for brand new parents, you're probably not seeing a lot of legacy gifts. You're probably seeing a lot of people, yes, they're going to get their will, but they're not necessarily putting in a charitable gift at that time. And then you see people, as Fraser kind of alluded to, in their 60s, maybe their late 60s, their 70s, updating their will. They're realizing their children are grown, they're taken care of, they're established, and they have that ability to leave that 5%, 10%, or a specific gift to a charity. But there's also a group of donors that we've been noticing at SFU. And this is predominantly women in their late 30s, early 40s, who've either come to the conclusion or proudly declared, I am living a child-free life. They reach an age where they kind of, either by choice or by circumstance, children are not something that needs to be a factor in their future planning. And at that point, they say, a lot of them, you know, what do I want to do with my house, with my career, with my investments? What's my meaning? What's my purpose? And that is where I see a lot of people reaching out to SFU, wanting to put a gift in their will for the same reasons that Fraser's talking about, wanting symbolic immortality, wanting to honor their values, create a named endowment so that their legacy can live on. And what unfortunately happens, I think, in our sector is some judgments and some biases about young women come into play, and they're not taken seriously. Last year in October, we had a donor get up and speak about her legacy giving experience. And she said the first time she went to make a planned gift, she was told by the planned giving director, you're too young, you'll probably change your mind before you die, and maybe I should be speaking with your parents. And I have found that young women, especially women in their 30s and 40s who are child-free, are not taken seriously by the medical profession. They're often not taken seriously by their own families. Their life choices aren't respected. And shame on us as a sector that we are also perpetrating that, because I think we also need to realize that there's a generational difference, that maybe for civics and for baby boomers, their work life was about earning money, saving, retiring, getting a second car. But there's been a shift in Generation X and millennials. You're finding people wanting careers with purpose and meaning. You're finding people wanting more work-life balance. You're finding people wanting to work from home. These kind of realizations about why am I here, why does it matter, and what's important are coming earlier for these generations. At SFU, we previously to our old, we've got kind of a new team all came in around 2016. I was brought in 2017. And our new plan giving director, Carrie Gaymond, is really kind of big on making data-driven decisions. So doing things based on data, making smart choices based on data, and not necessarily just using assumptions and biases to drive the decisions we make. So under Carrie's leadership, we did propensity scoring of our entire database. So we worked with PG Growth, and a lot of, I know probably GoodWorks does this, Hardin McKinnon does this, And we looked at our database, and they gave a score of how likely someone is to respond favorably to a planned gift appeal based on a number of factors, not just age, looking at longevity of giving, volunteer involvement, the number of degrees they've done with the university, participation in our athletics programs. And everyone got a score based on how likely they were to leave a planned gift. And we changed the way we do donor acquisition. Historically, it was donor surveys to people over 55, period. Now we are surveying based on the people most likely to leave a planned gift, regardless of their age. And in the last 5 years, we have seen an almost 400% growth in donors under 55 entering the planned gift pipeline. So this could be indicating they're seriously considering a gift, indicating they've already left a gift, sharing with us their will documents. That's kind of the whole range. And it has been a good investment. And it hasn't actually meant that we needed to spend a lot more time and resources. We were doing these acquisition surveys anyways. We just changed who we were including and what criteria we were using to select those donors. The other thing I'll say is that we're in the middle of a global pandemic. It has forced a lot of people to rethink meaning, to think about mortality, to think about life. You know, I personally found 3 months of no shopping and no going to kids' birthday parties kind of forced me to realize, like, what are the things in life that make me happy? What are the things in life that bring me joy? And it's not the hustle and bustle and moving around. It's family, it's connections, it's the people I love, it's the causes I care about. So because of COVID-19, we are in a really unique position right now where younger donors are thinking about these topics, thinking about mortality, thinking about legacy in a way that maybe they weren't before. In addition, we're at a time of a lot of political upheaval. People are paying attention to injustice, inequality in a way we weren't as a society before, and people are asking big questions about what are my values? How do I want to make the world better? What am I here for? What's my purpose? In a way that people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s probably weren't a few years ago. So we have to respect that when donors are coming to us or when we're reaching out to donors, that we're in a very unique situation. And this mindset of thinking about things in a more philosophical way is here, and it is happening for younger donors. So now our next poll question is, since March 2020, have you gotten a call or an email from someone who is under 50 who's in the process of writing their will? And again, feel free to share in the chat box if you have comments, if you want to jump in with your experience. Beth Ann shares, 50 suddenly seems much younger than before, and I think that's very true. I met with a donor 8 months ago when meeting with donors was something we could do, who's 76, and she's healthy and she's active, and you know, when you think about someone who's 76, that's not who you think of. So I think we're also sort of rethinking what it means to be old, what it means to be young. Some of these terms are definitely changes. So thanks for the comment, Beth Ann. So please do answer our poll question now. Curious to know if I've certainly noticed a big uptake of people reaching out to us, especially younger people, getting their wills done, needing will wording, wanting to do terms of reference, those types of things. So thanks everyone for answering our poll question, and we'll just get our results up in a second. Okay, so about half of us actually have seen this uptake in younger people reaching out, wanting to make gifts in their wills. I find that really interesting, and I think we should all be aware that things have changed a little bit, and younger donors are being a little more interested in this topic. Back to you, Dad.
So the second bit I want to talk about, and I won't be as long as I was the first time, I want to talk about the quantified research into where is the money actually, like what is actually going on out there in society. And back in 2010, I convinced my partners at GoodWorks to do the first ever State of the Legacy Nation poll of adult Canadians to find out where we were at with our will making and our bequest making. And we've since repeated that identical research a few times, the most recent being 2019, just before the pandemic began. So there are a couple of things to keep in mind. I am an absolute believer that to go out and try to talk to someone about making a will and a gift at the same time is a big stretch. It's too much for 99% of people to kind of process all at once. So I come from the position that if you want to get charitable bequests for your organizations, go and talk to people who already have wills, or are at least in the process of making wills, as Rory just talked about. And when it comes to will making, there are factors that come into play, like educational level and income, but by far the biggest factor that affects whether or not people have wills is their age. As you can see on the left, 11% of people under the age of 30 have wills, whereas 75% of people over the age of 60 have wills. That, as unsexy as it might be, is a very powerful argument to you to consider going to your older constituents and supporters if you're looking for bequests. When we looked at people who had actually made bequests as opposed to made wills, we found that 84% came from either the baby boom or the civic cohort. So I'm smack in the middle of the baby boom. The youngest boomer today is 55. So as of our research, 84% of the money in Canadian wills today, and there's a lot of it, comes from people age 55 plus. They once asked John Dillinger why he robbed banks, and his answer was because that's where they keep the money. If you want to be a bank robber, or if you want to steal money, go to a bank. If you want to find legacy gifts, go talk to older people. The other thing we found with our research is that 75% of all of the people in this country who make charitable bequests are also responsive to direct mail fundraising. So if you have a direct mail program, your direct mail donors are great suspects, if not prospects. And as we all know, direct mail donors tend to be older as well. So my first argument on this front is that if you're looking for who has the wills and who's actually making the bequests, those people are in fact over age 55. The other question is, where does all this money come from? I would start by just giving some basic economics here. There are three kinds of households in Canada. About a third of us rent our homes. About a third of us own our homes and we're still paying mortgages. And about a third, actually 29%, own our homes, but the mortgages are paid off. So almost a third of Canadian households are owner occupied by people who have no debt on that house. That house belongs to them, lock, stock, and barrel. So there were sorry, sweetie, just go back a sec. There are almost 4 million of these households in Canada. Sorry, the dollar sign shouldn't be there on the first number. The total value of this paid off real estate, residential real estate, is almost $2 trillion. This is the first time I've ever used trillion in any kind of fundraising presentation, but that's what almost 2 trillion looks like. And the total amount of charitable bequest value in the wills of living Canadians today, so this is people who are alive, who have already made bequests to charity, the total value of those bequests based on our research is $216 billion. I don't have data to prove this, but I believe that probably 3/4 of that $216 billion in bequests comes from the value of residential real estate. That is your low-hanging fruit. That's the big piece of gold, pot of gold sitting at the end of the rainbow. And so the next question becomes, who owns these paid off houses? It's going to be people who are older. So if you're looking for legacy prospects in Fraser's world, there are two kind of streams to follow. One is the demographic stream. So I always encourage my client, look for your donors or supporters or volunteers who are over 60. Look for people who are homeowners with a paid off mortgage, if you can find out that information. Look for families who have, if they have kids, that those kids have finished their university education. Rory, I still remember how much your education cost. To a lesser degree, higher education and income come into play, but my holy trinity are really over 60, house paid off, education paid for and done. On the other side is, what has their behavior been like as a donor to your charity? And it's really looking for people who've made loyal giving behavior over time. Legacy giving is not predicted by large gifts, by the amount of the money, but rather, I would rather have a donor who made 20 gifts of $50 each over a 30-year period than a donor who made 4 gifts of $5,000 in each of the last 5 years. Even though the second donor has given a lot more money, the first donor has shown you that she's a very loyal supporter over a long period of time. The last thing I want to mention in this segment is I recently, after having written a book on planned giving like 13 years ago, I made my first planned gift just a couple of months ago. And when I was deciding who I was actually going to make my gift to, I narrowed down to three causes. One was the biggest hospice here in Ottawa, where I live, because my mother had died in an ICU in a very uncomfortable, difficult kind of manner. And her identical twin, who died several years later, died in a hospice. And I got to witness both of those experiences. And I sure wish my mom had had the opportunity to go to a hospice for her final few weeks. The second cause I considered was violence against women. I grew up in a violent household, or domestic violence. I grew up in a violent household, and that experience still shapes who I am and still shapes what it is I try to do. I volunteer some time in that cause today. And the third cause I was deeply interested in was addiction recovery. Being a recovered alcoholic myself, and having gone through that recovery journey, which was the most difficult thing I've ever done. Done it successfully, and I'm grateful for it now, including the negatives. I chose from those three. Now, if I had been making a bequest choice in my 30s, I probably would have chosen an anti-poverty organization, a third world development organization, or more of a Amnesty International human rights kind of organization. But as I aged, the causes that were of deepest import to me changed as well. And so I just throw that out there as a question. When do we really settle in on those causes that live deepest within us? I'm not sure of the answer, but I thought I'd ask the question.
All right, well, to kind of counter, sort of what we've just been talking about, I think we also need to recognize that demographics of families in Canada are changing. The amount of couples without children is increasing. And again, as I referenced earlier, we're finding that donors are, especially couples without children or single individuals without children, are asking those questions about meaning a lot earlier in life. There's this great company called GoodWorks. Dad, I don't know if you've heard of it. They've done some research, and they found 72% of Canadians that are making a will are leaving money to children. What that means is about 30% of Canadians with wills aren't leaving money to children. So what are we doing to connect with that 30%, to engage that 30%? 73% left money to spouses, 27% didn't. So we need to, again, rethink maybe some of the assumptions we're making, that all planned gift donors are going to be parents, are going to have grandchildren, and really understand that for people who have family situations that might be different to our own, some of those conversations about meaning and legacy are coming in a little bit earlier. And this research that was presented by CAGP not that long ago is sort of what sparked me to want to have this conversation at all. They showed that those aged 35 to 50 are donors who are most interested in leaving a gift in their will to charity. And this is a demographic that is being really under-marketed to when it comes to planned giving. So if you're interested as a charity in, exploring this new opportunity, you're looking for growth, you're looking to expand your legacy giving program, I would really encourage you to take seriously this cohort. Again, I'm not necessarily proposing that you go out and create a brand new planned giving program specifically targeting this age group, but think about how can you be expanding what you're already doing to include donors in this age group who likely are interested in leaving a planned gift, who likely do have an inclination, have an affinity, have a connection, but are being left out because of the assumptions we're making about age. Again, just to reference what we've found at SFU, being a data-driven team, is that we've had success with our acquisition surveys when we target donors in this age group. Not every single donor, but donors who have those loyalty affiliations. So back to Fraser's point that you want to look for someone who's in a certain life stage and someone who's got loyalty of giving. I would actually argue the loyalty of giving trumps the life stage and the age that you're in, especially with this new research from CAGP showing that donors 35 to 50 are most interested in leaving a gift in their will to charity. This research elaborated, and it talked about some research from the States that showed when donors leave a gift in their will to you when they are younger, it is less likely that they will remove that gift. And in fact, 75% of donors under 55 do not revoke the gift. And if they do change their will, it's to increase the size of the gift. So I really want to drive this point home that 75% of donors who leave a gift in a will to a charity will not revoke the gift. In fact, if they're getting their wills redone as they age, the size of the gift goes up. So again, this is just challenging kind of an assumption we make that people are going to radically change the causes they care about and the things they believe about as they age. And I just kind of want to conclude by saying that when you have people in this age group who have an affinity, a connection, the last thing you want to do is make them feel like, as a charity, you don't value them because it's going to be a long time before you see the money. One of my favorite questions is, does your charity need donations or do you need donors? And it might be different for your cause. If you're trying to save a park from being torn down, if you're trying to survive the next 3 years with a global pandemic, maybe what you need is donations. You need cash in the door right now that may or may not be renewed in the future. Perhaps that's your focus. But for a lot of causes, what you need is donors. You need individuals who care about your cause and who are committed to your cause and will do many things over the course of their lifetime to advance your cause. Volunteering, being an ambassador, making lifetime donations, increasing the size of their bequest. Because a donation will only get you so far. And if you're interested in the long-term health of your cause, and by the way, I think it's every fundraiser's responsibility to manage up and educate their leadership and their board about the importance of planning beyond the next fiscal year. That is, I think, as important of a skill set for a major gift officer as closing a gift. So you need to work on your own ability to communicate return on investment of investing in building donor relationships to your board. All right, back to you, Fraser.
I want to just agree with you on the managing up. Especially, I find in our work with the clients and the potential clients we're talking to now, the big challenge is not at all donors. Donors in the pandemic are willing to give. And in fact, many are more generous than they were before the pandemic started. The challenge we're finding is charity leadership, who are feeling frightened and they want to kind of sit on their hands and not move and not take risks. And all the evidence, including some research we've just completed, if you want to go to our website and look at it, it's there for you. The research is called, "Is annual giving immune to COVID-19?" The answer is yes, it is immune. People are there and they're still giving, and it's our leaders who need to make smart decisions and move forward. I want to be really clear on something. I'm not saying for a minute that no one on this webinar should ever talk to anyone under the age of 55 about a legacy gift. I'm not talking about black or white, but I'm talking about shades of gray. And if you think of a teeter-totter, if the teeter-totter goes all one way, one end will touch the ground. I don't think my end should touch the ground, and I don't think Rory's end should touch the ground. I do think the teeter-totter should tip my way. Because at the end of the day, we're looking at investments. And we're looking at spending the limited amount of money that we have in the places that is going to generate the best long-term return for us. And Rory talks about lifetime giving and younger donors, and she's right to do so. We need to also, back to managing up, our leaders need to understand that they're creating revenue portfolios. And some of these revenue portfolios, as Rory said, are focused on donations. It's the special event or the gaming thing that you do, or the dream of a lifetime lottery. And others, like major and planned giving, are more long-term enterprises that have much bigger payoffs over time. So I don't know, I can't remember, Rory, if we set this up as a poll question or not, but yes. So which of these following, if you think of your own charity and your own organization, I would like you to vote. So would you say that your budget is more than enough to reach all of the planned giving audiences that you want to reach? Would you say that it's sufficient to reach out to your best legacy prospects, but not more? Would you say that your budget is limited and you mostly do planned giving off the corner of your desk? Or would you say that your budget is next to nothing and you're very tight for fundraising investments?
I think too, just to piggyback while people are answering, my experience from conferences, Fraser, and I'm sure you find this too, is when we talk about best practice of fundraising, when we talk about how to engage donors, the fundraisers in the room are already on board and they already agree with what's being presented. The challenge they have is, how do I get my board to approve this? How do I get my finance team to approve these expenditures? So again, to my point, you need to learn sort of how to communicate value of your program, how to understand the communication style of your board, just like you would a donor, right? When you're with a donor, you learn how you should communicate with that donor, how you should present to that donor, how you should convince that donor, how they like information presented. The same skills are going to help you with your CEO, your executive director, your board chair, learning how they communicate, how they like to receive information, and making your case for support in a way that's going to be receptive to them. This could be its own session, but anyways, let's see if we've got some results. Fraser, are those jumping up for you? We've got about 70%.
Yeah, I can see them, and they're interesting, and I'm not surprised at them. For the 5% that answered the first answer, you might as well just vote for Rory now and go home, because you've decided it. The bottom three groups, I think, start to tilt more towards the middle, or possibly in the direction of favoring older donors. Well, another thing I wanted to say, and I didn't make a note of it, so I'm glad it's coming back to my old head. The answer to this debate is going to be different for each and every one of you, depending on the kind of cause that you are. I mean, if you are a post-secondary institution, you are going to have younger prospects. If you're a hospital foundation or a health charity, you're going to tend more towards the older prospects. If you're in the environmental sector, you might go younger. If you're in social services, you might go older. So it really depends who you are, who your donor base is. Also, what kind of fundraising you do. If the biggest single source of money for your organization is major gifts, you're probably leaning more in Rory's direction. If your biggest source of revenue is direct response, digital, direct mail, phone, that kind of stuff, probably older donor base. So there's no one answer, there's no one size fits all in fundraising. And it's important for you all to just hear what Rory and I have to say and make your own choice. The challenge here, and again, to talk about managing up, there's no question that the return on your plan giving investment is the best return you're going to earn no matter how you raise money. With our clients, we almost always work out scenarios and projections where at the end of the day, and the end of the day means 20 or 25 years from now, the client is going to raise $1 for every 3 or 4 cents that they spend. So the return on investment is huge. But the other question, and Rory's taken a certain position, I still ask the question, if you did have younger people who made bequests, might they change their mind on who they want to leave bequests to once they've lost a spouse to cancer, or once they've had a grandchild with a health threat? You don't know which of those causes are going to be truly close to home always when you're in your 30s or 40s. The other question is from a strictly plan giving point of view, and I'm not talking lifetime giving here, but plan giving. If I were on a board and someone came to me and said, we want to market plan gifts to our 60-year-old audience, and in 10 to 20 years, we're going to raise this much money, I would say, yeah, it's a good idea. It makes sense. It fits the portfolio. But if someone said, I want to spend $25,000 or $50,000 to market to our millennial audience, and we think it's going to do really well in 60 years' time when they die, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would feel like a responsible board member authorizing an investment with that long of a payout. So all in all, I think, again, it comes back to that poll question. If you've got money to speak to everybody, go ahead. If you've got limited resources and you can only speak to certain audiences, I do agree with Rory that loyal giving is the first and foremost, or loyal volunteering, whatever it might be, is the first and foremost factor. But if you're going beyond that, for me, number 2 is clearly age.
So I think for me, when I hear Fraser saying, if I was presenting to the board saying we want to market plan giving to this age group and we'll see the gift come in the door, long down the road, I would phrase that differently. I would say we have the opportunity as plan giving fundraisers to do something really meaningful and significant with donors and get them to cement and concrete their commitment to our cause at age 35. And then through stewardship and cultivation, build a relationship that can lead to truly transformational gifts. Would you rather have a donor leave a planned gift to you in their 30s and then in their 40s, 50s, and 60s amass wealth, but you've been stewarding them for 20 years, or have the name of a millionaire land on your desk that you have no connection with and your board says, he's got a lot of money, please go after him? Planned giving is often thought of as that last step of the donor journey. If you see a donor pyramid, planned giving is often at the top. And what I've been lucky enough to learn in my last 5 years of planned giving at SFU, and I'm going to embarrass her because she's on the webinar, but I have I work for a truly exceptional planned giving senior director, Carrie Gaiman. And her philosophy is about working with the donor through their whole lifetime. And I've learned so much that a planned gift is not the last thing a donor does. It is a meaningful step in a lifelong relationship. And Carrie and I were talking about this presentation yesterday, and she was saying, you know, Rory, a donor might leave the planned gift and then increase their monthly giving and then make a leadership gift and then increase their planned gift and then make a major gift and then another major gift and then perhaps decide I want to take some of those assets from my estate and fund it in my lifetime and then end with a planned gift. And I have seen, again, I'm sorry, Carrie, to be putting you on the spot, but I have seen Carrie's stewardship and cultivation of donors lead to $1 million donations in a donor's lifetime of someone that another type of fundraiser might write off, not engage, and just say, we'll wait till they pass to get that money. And in fact, this style of planned giving has led to some really transformational blended gifts at the university, where the donor is funding part in their lifetime, part in their estate. So changing that philosophy that a planned gift is, all a planned gift is good for is when the donor passes getting that money in the door, changing your philosophy of how you look at it, I think could really help you unlock some really transformational gifts from some of the donors you work with. And, you know, a planned gift, I think, you know, it's not just something you do. It's a statement of love. It's a statement of values, of commitment. And it's the first step on a journey with your donors. You said this to me once, Dad. I have found kind of two camps of fundraisers in terms of how they steward planned gift donors. There are some that believe, okay, the gift is in the will. We should leave them alone. We should not bother them because we don't want to be taken out of the will. They're almost afraid to talk to their planned giving donors because they're scared of losing the gift. They pull them out of annual giving efforts. They pull them out of, they don't want the major gifts people talking to them. Stay away from them. We need to leave them alone. We don't want the gift taken out. As again, we've learned earlier in the presentation, younger donors that are making gifts in their will aren't very likely to take you out of their will. You don't need to be so scared of losing that gift. In fact, if they're revising their wills, chances are they're increasing the amount that's going to your charity. So to quote Fraser Green, the purpose of planned giving stewardship is not to prevent the donor from revoking their gift. It's to encourage them to increase their lifetime gifts down the road. So I'm not just advocating for you to market planned giving to younger donors. I'm advocating to adopt a philosophy that people at any age, if they are fully engaged, can do truly transformational things for your organization, and to take them seriously, to give them opportunities to give at a younger age, and to make sure those resources are available for those loyal donors when they need them at any age. So our last poll question, or maybe our second to last poll question, is going to pop up right now, is have you seen examples of planned giving stewardship increase a donor's either lifetime gift or increase the gift in their will? And if you could answer our poll question or jump in our comments and just tell us a little anecdote. Actually, I think this is just comments. I don't think we have a pop-up. So please feel free to jump in and share if you've seen planned gifts increase or planned giving donors increase their stewardship. And a little anecdote from PG Growth, who's the company I mentioned we worked with to do our propensity scoring. They shared that if you send a planned giving donor survey to a donor, if it's well written and well designed, even if they don't respond favorably to the planned giving questions, getting the survey increases their lifetime giving. So the act of surveying a donor, and if the purpose of the survey is to uncover planned giving leads, even if the survey doesn't uncover a lead, asking them questions, engaging with them about why do you support the cause, tailoring, if you learn something about the donor, maybe changing how you're communicating with the donor, has return on investment, even if it's not benefiting your plan giving program. We've got Celia saying annual giving increases after a legacy giving commitment to younger donors means larger, higher lifetime value of donors. Excellent point, couldn't have said it better myself. Tess say, as a plan giving officer, she's increasing stewardship, and she's had 4 monthly donors double their donations by focusing on just stewardship of plan giving. Sandra said that she interviewed a plan giving donor, they increased the size of their request. Karen from from St. Paul's is also kind of sharing that stewardship has increased, she's seen it increase gifts. So thank you all for jumping in the comments and sharing that. I think it's a thing that we've seen, and investment in stewardship, investment in cultivation does have really great results.
And Rory, I'll just add a quick comment to that as well. When we first started doing the kind of iceberg philanthropy method, 13, 14 years ago, we would work with a client that had pretty much a direct mail donor audience is where we tended to focus. And we would take about 20 to 25% of those annual donors who were most loyal, and we would send them legacy mailings 2 or 3 times a year for a couple of years. And when we were talking with the clients about setting up these programs, the big resistance came from the person who was running the annual giving program, because they were afraid that all this legacy stuff was going to step on their annual results, was going to suppress results, and was going to divert donors' attention to other things. And it didn't take long at all until we realized that those donors who were receiving the additional legacy mail from us were actually giving more on an annual basis, because they felt more connected and they felt more valued, and they just felt like they were deeper into the relationship. So I completely agree with what everyone's saying from the comments. To sum up my arguments, it's older people that have wills. 84% of the money in Canadian wills today comes from people over the age of 55. And from the old saying, you know, show me the money, that's where the money is. 75% of bequests come from direct mail donors, who again tend to be older. The mind is ready at age 60 for mortality and hungry for immortality in a way that people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s haven't reached yet. How long can you wait for the payoff? I must admit here, I am persuaded by Rory's lifetime giving argument, so I will kind of take that one off the board. But the bottom line is, if you have limited resources, you've got to prioritize. And I would be surprised if anyone on this call has got enough money to reach every donor and prospect and supporter to the degree that they'd like to with plan giving messaging. I'll leave you with this idea. What I would like to recommend you think about is take your best prospects, who are going to tend to be, at least 85% of them, over the age of 55, and spend your available budget on those people. And then take your remainder of your audiences, maybe more occasional donors or younger donors or whoever they might be, and then try to piggyback plan giving messages on all the other communications vehicles that you're using already. So if you're sending out that tax receipt and thank you letter once a year to your monthly donors, put in a buck slip that tells the story of a monthly donor who made a planned gift. Or if you've got a newsletter that goes out twice a year, dedicate a page or a half a page to telling a story of someone else who gets the newsletter who decided to make a legacy gift. Put some stuff on your website, make a video. You can do it with your phone, and put a video of the donor testimonial up on your website. Send out an email. You know, there are all sorts of things that you're already doing where if you incorporate some legacy content, I call it raindrops on the roof. You just want to keep those raindrops falling, because in my experience, from the moment the average donor starts to think about maybe I should make a planned gift to the moment she says, yeah, I'm going to do it, that can take 3 to 5 years. And then from the time that donor says, yeah, I'm going to make a planned gift to you, to Simon Fraser, to the day that she actually comes out of the lawyer's office with the signature on the page, that can be another 3 to 5 years. You can be looking at a decade for this conversation and this courtship to continue, and you've got to keep those little raindrops falling on the group roof, no matter which way you see the debate teeter-totter kind of pointing at the end of all this. Rory, I'll let you finish.
And I would say, you know, to summarize my key takeaways for you are to remember that 28% of Canadians are making wills and not leaving money to children. that donors aged 35 to 50 are making wills and, as we've shown, are interested in leaving gifts to charity and wills. To remember that bequests made by younger donors are more stable, and to think what I'm really trying to advocate for is not that you go out and spend $10,000 doing a planned giving campaign aimed at 30-year-olds. What I'm asking you to consider is a mind shift and a philosophy shift to see the value of starting these relationships early, to see the lifetime of a donor and not just think about your own silo, and to really think about how can all of the gift vehicles play a role in the donor's life and help them make an impact in the cause they care about. And to think about a bequest gift as a beginning of a relationship, not the last step. Someone in the comments, I apologize, it's gone by and I didn't see your name, asked about digital tools. And this is a great example where if you're running an email campaign, it costs you nothing to add an extra 1,000, 2,000 names of younger donors onto that list. So now we're going to ask you one last time. Do you think it's a good use of time and resources to focus on securing planned gifts from donors under 50? And I can't remember what the ratio was at the beginning. I want to say, was it half and half?
About 60-40.
60-40. Let's see if anyone's changed their mind. I don't know if we have this last poll question.
I don't, I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Oh, that's okay, don't worry about it. All right, why don't we jump into, I know we're hitting 10 o'clock, so, or 11 o'clock, so thank you everyone. I know we're running a little over, so if people have to jump off, we completely understand. If you have questions, you want to share a comment, an anecdote, your own experience, your own tips, your own tricks, feel free to jump in, or let us know that you'd like to be unmuted, maybe turn on your camera and wave at us. We want to hear from you.
I just want to say this was a real gas, and I want to thank everyone who joined the webinar for giving me an excuse to spend an hour with my daughter. It was great.
Jane asked if this is being recorded. Yes, it is. We'll be sending it out.
Yeah, and if we have no one, I don't see any other questions, so we'll honor folks' time and wrap up. I just want to thank you both so much for bringing really thoughtful considerations to both sides of the coin. And I think we can all agree that there's great potential across the age spectrum for legacy giving. And it really does come down to what you're able to do, your capacity, and your organization. But the more we can integrate those messages and, as Fraser says, piggyback on other things, getting those younger donors in sooner is a great way to go. Thank you all on the call for being here today. I hope you'll join us for our next event. It's Understanding Chinese Canadian Gift Planning, which I know I've seen so many topics where people have asked that question at the end. Do you have any information about? And so this is it. Here's the topic. So registration is now open. The link is appearing in the chat box momentarily if it's not already there. And lastly, I'd really love if you could take a moment to click the other link in the chat box that is a survey, very brief about today's session. Let us know about the time slot. Let us know how you thought the topic went, and it really helps us plan. It helps the speakers. And that's it for now. Thank you and have a great rest of your day and a happy Halloween weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for being here and good luck with everything. I know it's a challenging time to be, I don't know, existing in the world. So it really means a lot. You spent an hour with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
I want to thank Rory and Fraser for an excellent presentation. I tried to type the message to thank you, but it seems like it's not going to everyone. So I hope you can hear me that I really enjoyed this presentation. Really good.
Thank you.
And excellent, excellent. It's one of the best presentations I've ever been to. Thank you.
Until we go to yours, and then we'll say that about yours.
Oh, don't know about that. Don't put your hope too high, but certainly Charlene and I will try our best. I don't think it will be any near comparison to yours, but
oh, I think it's
do our best.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, bye.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you.